Hello, my beautiful friends. If it strikes your fancy, my beautiful fellow space blobs, if you happen to identify with that category like I do, however you'd like to be addressed, welcome. Hello, I'm so happy to have you here. And if you are new here, my name is Sarah. And a lot of times we talk about archetypes and astrology and tarot and all of those ideas, but so much more than just boxing ourselves in. And sometimes I like to have chats about the big picture in life beyond those categories and that work. And today is a chat for anybody who is moving through a season of doubt, uncertainty. Maybe you're sensing that you feel like you're failing at something or something's coming to an end, that you don't feel ready for it to come to an end, or you don't know what the next step is, and you don't know how to continue your creative journey. This is really for all of us who feel that tenderness. And this is such an important conversation to have, I think, regularly, because it is an innate part of living here in this world as a human, right? And we live in a world of undulation and change, even just the natural world, things come and go. And we can see that, even our breath is a rise and a fall. And yet, we live in a culture that is very much about this kind of mechanized upward movement, this constant striving for more, for better, for improvement, and kind of almost avoiding the places in our lives where we have like so-called dips or slowdowns or seasons where we don't feel like productive machines. And it's so interesting. A lot of us walk around with this deep shame, worried that we're going to be castigated, cast out, judged, and rejected by the world around us because we're having seasons of slowness, uncertainty, doubt, or endings to things, right? And so I think it's important that this conversation keeps coming up time and time again because we're all going through it. And I tell you what, I am going through this in real time as I sit here with you all today, because this last year, 15 months have been really, really interesting for me on this front. So I wanted to start by sharing a little bit about that process in kind of the review of the last 15 months. And then I want to share some paradigms that have been really, really helpful for me and have kind of helped me move through some of the things and some of the stuff that I'm still curious and uncertain about in the coming months of my life that I have no idea what's going to happen. So let's get into it. So for those of you who have just joined me on this journey, you may not know this, but I live in Stockholm, Sweden, and I moved here at the beginning of 2022 because I am married and I have a Swedish partner, and we decided to go for it here. This beautiful, beautiful place that has so much stability, and I am really, really grateful. It was a dream of mine for a long time to have this kind of adventure, this type of partnership that I'm having and experiencing with just this really amazing person who's kind and loving, to get to move to a new place and explore myself. I think, 10 years ago, Sarah would have just been like so impressed by where I'm sitting right now. And I do feel so much overwhelmed and excitement that I got to have this experience of moving here, because I know not everybody gets to do things like this, and that it's special. It's really special. This is what I'll also say, getting those dreams, some of the biggest dreams that we can have in life, is really, really vulnerable. And I think a lot of us, we don't realize the process that might come up in getting our dreams, right? Getting the dream position that we wanted, the dream career, or the dream location, or the dream opportunity, whatever it is, right? When we've kind of entered into that space, an interesting thing happens, which is that a lot of layers are revealed about ourselves. And for me, one of the really big themes of this entire last year and a half has been grieving and letting go. So while it has been an amazing journey, I'm so proud of myself and everything I've moved through, and very grateful for what I have. To be honest, there have been so many waves of grief and uncertainty in living this life that I'm living here. Because I had to let go of how I defined myself and how I thought of myself in the era of my life previously, when I was a single woman living alone and I loved it. I had my community of friends, my creativity, my just kind of like weird alone time that I just really thrive in. I loved that season of my life, even though that also came with its own challenges and weirdnesses. But I had to kind of let go and grieve that part of my life. I had to let go and grieve a version of myself that had a specific community, a specific location, a specific sense of identity based on location. And that has been really, really tender and emotional, and has revealed a lot of layers about things that have to do with belonging and safety and security that I've had to examine and look at and cry myself through a lot of times, many, many times. And I think this is one of the sides of the creative journey that we often forget about, which is that when we grow and expand into the next thing, there's a process of having to kind of modulate and release and open and grieve what has been. And that has definitely been a huge part of my journey. So one of the things that happened as I explored all those themes around moving and who I am and grieving and releasing, another thing happened, which is that my relationship to my work started to change, because you can't selectively change and grow one aspect of your life and then expect all the other aspects to stay the same, right? Everything's connected. It always goes hand in hand. Once we've realized one thing about ourselves, all the other realizations start to pop up like popcorn, and there's no unknowing anymore. There's only the knowing. And in my case, I realized my work had to change, which was terrifying. I have cried so many times about this, I can't even tell you, because for those of you who have been with me through these chats, you are my true soul friends. I love sitting here with you, by the way. You know that I let go of doing the monthly readings for all 12 signs of the zodiac. That was so terrifying. But I have really grown as a person. I've really changed as a person. I've been here on YouTube for 7 years, almost 7 years, and I've changed a lot. I've matured. I think my vision and the way I understand tools like tarot and astrology have really grown and changed. I really don't feel a connection whatsoever to pop astrology and pop tarot. I don't feel connected to a lot of the ways it's being taught or spoken about or posted about. It feels very grating to me. And it's not to disparage anybody doing that work, like at all, because I think it can be so fun and everybody has their own unique way of working with it, which is the beauty of it. Just for me, I couldn't fit into that box anymore, and I've just been longing to do things so beyond the scope of that little world, because it's so much more about intuition, soul, archetype, the creation of story as we move through and go through deep hills, deep valleys and big hills in our lives, and how we navigate and modulate through that. And for me, that's what really brings me to life. We can use tarot and astrology if we want, but we can also not. And because of that, I've really longed to start creating things that really reflect who I am becoming now. But this has been terrifying because, of course, that means that I'm losing people. I'm losing part of my audience, right? I've lost part of my audience. Let's be real. I've lost a part of a group of people who really loved my monthly readings, and I respect that and I honor that. That is what happens. It's also terrifying because it opens up the abandonment wound like you wouldn't believe. Even though I know that I'm following my soul and I'm becoming more myself and I'm going to shine brighter and have a more beautiful life where I feel connected to myself, and even though I know that I have to follow my own becoming, there's just no way to kind of pull it back and force myself into an old shape. There's a part of me that has wanted to just be Sarah from 2017 or 2019 who could just deliver that succinct, clear thing every month and just stay in the safety of this is what I do, this is what it looks like. But of course, nothing stays the same. And it can't stay the same, and it's not meant to stay the same. And this is a tender thing. Here's my dog. This is little Bjorn. And he's very tired after our walk in the woods. So yeah, that has also been happening, and it has been super scary. let's be real. It has been totally freaky to be changing up the way that I work, the way that I explore myself, and the way that I show up to this life. Like, what is this going to look like? With that in mind, I just wanted to share some of the paradigms that I think are so important. These are universal regardless of what kind of work you're doing in the world, what kind of challenges, themes, illnesses, struggles you're going through. These are themes that I think can be really, really helpful. Because when I'm thinking about creativity, it's not just literal creativity, like I'm making a painting or writing a book. It's the creativity of living a life, the themes and the phases of our lives and what those look like. And probably the most important paradigm that I've come back to time and time again when I've been going through this season of huge change in myself, where there's just no going back to the safety of the same shape. It's not an option. Is that this idea of going backwards or down or slowing down or like endings or maybe something not going the way that we thought was supposed to go isn't what we are taught it to believe it is in culture. Our culture is very biased to love that idea of ascent. It loves the idea of climbing up that hill, of conquering the thing, of making it through the depression, or, finally getting the answer to what you wanted, or excelling your career and getting the promotion and getting the raise and getting the windfall of money, right? Like that is so glamorized. And then our culture also just detests this idea of the descent when we go into seasons of uncertainty, of unknowing, of unwellness, when we go through seasons where maybe we lose a job or a job ends or a certain identity ends, right? Like if our kids leave the house, or if in my case, like you move countries and you realize like I'm trying to please everybody around me and there's just no way for me to fulfill all the expectations of dual cultures and all of it, right? There's this real dislike and shame around the idea of the descent into the not knowing and the uncertainty. But one of my favorite people to listen to and read is a guy called Michael Meade, who does a lot with living myth and the way that myth lives through our lives and how working with myth can really help us to visualize and see our lives in these really poetic, powerful, magical ways. He says the descent is the way of the soul. And I've loved this. This has changed everything for me because those moments when you're judging yourself because the job is ending or the person doesn't want to date you anymore, or, the thing isn't just not working, or you come home and you're just like, that was such an embarrassing social situation, or like something's just not coming together, whatever it is. This reminder that descent is the way of the soul, going toward, going deeper, not worrying about the external ascent towards something, but going deeper is the way of the soul. Here's where all the creative magic is living. So in those times when we're feeling so isolated, so ashamed, where we want to like hide the process we're going through, if we're losing something or we're feeling like we're failing at something, these are places where we are really tapped into soul. And that doesn't just look like feeling amazing and being high vibe, right? Like I think sometimes we can then have high expectations for ourselves to feel really spiritual when we're going through a season of a certain uncertainty or fear or doubt. And that's not the expectation either. This is really about just feeling the tenderness of our soul speaking to us and moving with us. And it's also to blast apart that idea of shame, because every single one of us is going to go through the journey of the soul in our own unique ways. And it is a straight up fabrication from the commercial world, from the capitalist world, quite honestly, that wants us to keep producing and keep buying and keep consuming, that those seasons of descent, those seasons of slowdown, those seasons of feeling like there's less or we are failing sometimes are seasons of true soul. They aren't productive for the system. They aren't productive for everybody out there who wants us to be somebody. And it can be scary for the part of ourselves that wants to keep us alive, that wants to keep us responsible, that wants to keep us mature, that wants to keep us, being a good person, right? All of our fears around what it means to be a responsible, mature adult who has certainty about life get challenged here. But this is really, really natural. It's really, really natural to have seasons of descent into the darkness. And it's also not to valorize, darkness. Like, we don't need to be seeking it out and trying to crash ourselves through it, right? Like, it's also not about trying to force ourselves into dark places. It is about some compassion about the parts of ourselves during these slow seasons, and that a lot of the best ingredients are actually waiting in these seasons of descent. While we may not be able to access the full power of those ingredients, they are culminating during these seasons normally, behind the scenes, under the ground, in the process. And eventually we will have access to those tools and those ingredients, but we often have to wait a little bit. And this takes me to the next paradigm that I think is really interesting, which is that there aren't really any real endings in life, in the sense of there being an ending and then just a void of nothingness. Nothing really ever works that way. Even when we're meditating, we're thinking about that void and this whole idea of, the void is the creation. I guess what I mean is that even seasons where it feels very arid and we can't even think of the next idea. We don't even know what is going to come after this job, after this relationship, after this creation. Like, who am I going to be? There's going to be nothing there. How do I even take the next step forward? Even in these seasons where it feels that way, something's elapsing into something else. And it's important we take rest. It's important we don't expect ourselves to elapse into the next big success right away. But something is elapsing into something else. Always. Always, always, always. And grief and farewells and letting go always elapse into the next thing. Even in seasons of non-creativity and just the inability to move forward on something is culminating. And I think this is so important, because here's another place with shame and judgment. If we feel stuck on a creative project, on a thing that needs to get done, the shame and judgment around it often is what's really blocking us. It's okay to not create for a minute. It's okay to not have an answer for a minute. It's okay to be in a season of doubt for a minute. And as soon as you release your resistance to the fact that you are in an arid season, or you are in a time where it feels like there is just an ending with no beginning, you just relax into that. Normally the next little step starts to appear. Finally, I just want to say that a lot of times the next step, the next culmination of who we're going to be becoming is just kind of out of our line of sight. Partially because we are focused on who we think we need to be, right? The next big goal. In my case, I felt like I've needed to recapture a spirit of myself that I was 4 or 5 years ago, and be that kind of person on the internet again. And I sometimes will blind myself to the fact that I'm just never going to be exactly like that ever again. So I'm going to have to open myself to the fact that I'm going to change in ways I can't even foresee from the moment that I'm sitting here having this chat with you. I don't even know what that is going to look like, but I do know that I'm going to be with myself. But so often, we'll have these kind of ideas of who we need to become and what that career needs to look like and what that fitness level needs to look like. And we're trying to jam ourselves onto this production line to get to who we think we need to be. But a lot of times the breakthrough, the idea, the next step is going to be not even on that path that we've kind of delineated for ourselves, that our rational mind has kind of put forward as the one way. And one of the best ways that we can kind of break out of that tunnel vision is to just go on long walks or do something that is not productive, not interesting, not trying to access a goal, but is just there to relax and play and get curious. That's one of the best ways that we can have breakthroughs, is to just relax and get curious and create space for that. But to be honest, also, like when it comes to not knowing how it's going to look and what it's going to feel like, yeah, we're just not going to know. We're just not going to know what it's going to look like. I think every single one of us, whenever you're watching this a year from now, the elements, the conversations, the realizations, the healing, the knowing that is going to come into your life, you can't even fathom it from sitting here right now. As much as we would like to believe that we could kind of map out the next year and know exactly what that's going to look like and feel like, we don't actually know. And it will be most likely slightly different than the track that we have put ourselves on for that year. And that's okay. That's how it is. That's how it's meant to be. And even when we think that something isn't working, something's just not culminating. It's just not coming into focus, no matter how many things you're trying, no matter how many times you like get yourself geared up to go. Even when we really feel like nothing is culminating, nothing's ever going to feel as bright and alive again. I'm never going to feel that sense of success or forward motion or that rush of enjoyment. It's amazing what the small motions in each day that we don't even realize we're doing, there are ingredients culminating always. And I just want to say that I just really want people to know that there are always ingredients culminating, whether you can see them or not. And the more you trust that feeling and just get back, like quite honestly, to a sense of trust in your soul. I mean, we're talking capital S soul, the better. The sooner we do that, the better. And we don't have to have high expectations for it. We don't have to feel perfect. We don't have to just be like, go with the flow, man. But if even for a couple minutes every single day, we can come back to soul, we can come back to soul and that trust in something really powerful moving with us. That's all we need. And sometimes, you just need a chat like this, somebody saying, yeah, it's scary. You're going to like cry. You're going to feel insecure. Maybe abandonment wounds are going to come up. That's okay. And then we're going to come back and we're going to reconnect with soul and we're going to feel that. And then another magical ingredient is going to come into the works. And we don't know what that's going to be, but we open our hearts to that. And that's all we really need to do. I mean, there's a lot of other practical things you can add on to that. But if we want to get back to really, really basic things, I think it's so important we take care of our belief in that beautiful connection to soul. And I think our culture really does not foster that feeling of connection to soul enough. So that's what I got. That's what I got here today. I guarantee you, like in the next couple of days, I will probably cry again. But I will say this, for those of you who sit here with me through these chats, it means so much to get to share this with you because I know you get it. And I know you have ridden through different themes that you can relate to with things that I brought up today on your own creative journey, on your own life journeys. And that feels so amazing. And it makes it really exciting to get to sit here and have conversations like this. I feel like I had so much to throw into this conversation. I couldn't even do it full justice in this one sitting. So I want to come back to this topic at some point and maybe like check in on one of my days when I'm feeling a lot more overwhelmed or something like that. It'd be great because I'm actually feeling pretty good today. It's a real roller coaster depending on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like, yeah, everything's going to work out, or like I will be crushed by trying to live this human life. It's just really, you never know which way the coin is going to land. But anyway, if you are enjoying conversations like this, I have created this amazing 4-week journey that is going to be on Patreon. It starts on May 17th and runs for 4 weeks. It is called Weaves, Webs, and Wending, and it's all about this. It's all about taking care of ourselves and getting back into dream time, getting back into creative time, fostering our trust with soul, fostering our trust with beginning and trying. I'm really excited about it. It's something I'm feeling really passionate about in general right now as a topic of conversation. So I would love to see you on Patreon. It's also how I can keep doing chats like this. And of course, you can find me on Instagram as well. I will be posting a lot more photos of my dog probably on there. So if you want to see more of my adorable dog Bjorn, you can check him out there, and me as well. And of course, you can also check out my website. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Patreon is the big one, of course. I'm really proud of the space that we have there. And I know probably a lot of you are already with me on that journey, which makes me so happy. Oh yeah, and then like and subscribe and comment, because those things really make a difference. I know it's an attention economy, but if you think that this is a helpful chat or something that's really brought you some soothing today, I would really love it if you leave a comment telling me about something that's going on with you, a doubt or uncertainty or fear, or maybe a hope or excitement or new beginning that's coming up for you. I'd love to hear about it. And I will see you all for our next chat very, very soon. And I am so curious to see where the road takes us, my friends.